want to start with a quick announcement because this is really exciting. This book came out, the new book, Secrets of Adulthood, Simple Truths for Our Complex Lives, came out April 2nd. It came out about a week ago.
April 1st, April Fool's Day, which felt inauspicious,
But it turns out to have been auspicious because as of this morning,
Yep.
this book is now on the New York Times bestseller list.
Yay! Yes, I'm so thrilled.
So these are
very exciting.
These are the first people that you're talking to since that happened.
Yes, it's super exciting.
Okay, that's fantastic.
Yes,
Now the book is a little different for you. We'll get into your other books and your biography and everything in a minute. But to call this digestible is almost an understatement.
Yeah, yes, exactly.
This is a book full of aphorisms. Do you want to talk a little bit about what an aphorism is and why you filled a book with them?
Yeah, well, you'll notice that the title and subtitle do not include the word aphorism because nobody knows what an aphorism is. But an aphorism is it's an ancient literary form, and it's the idea of making a general observation about human nature and trying to do it in a very concise way. Which is hard. There's that old joke about, I would have written you a short letter, but I didn't have enough time, so I wrote you a long one.
Yeah, as a writer, I absolutely know.
Right.
That is the thing.
So an aphorism also is an observation that's attributed to a particular person. So it's Oscar Wilde, or it's Warren Buffett, or it's, Benjamin Franklin. You know that somebody said it. And that's different from a proverb. So a proverb is something like, a stumble may prevent a fall, or you can't push a rope. That's folk wisdom. That's something that, it's not attached to any one particular person. It's just something kind of floating in the air. So these are my general observations about human nature, and these are aphorisms that are meant to be useful as we go through life, as we're trying to tackle the challenges of adulthood.
And a good aphorism should be useful. I mean, it's a rich and noble tradition. Ben Franklin wrote a few, didn't he?
Yeah, Poor Richard.
Yeah, I think Nietzsche wrote a bunch, didn't he?
A bunch?
Yeah. So like him,
Zara,
but there's nothing about the will to power in here.
No, not yes. So I got to carve out my own niche from Nietzsche. Yeah.
So what was your focus? Now, were you already just kind of like jotting down aphorisms already, or was this I've got to from whole cloth create a book of wise and piquant sayings?
Yeah. Well, I realized that sort of unconsciously as I was writing, I was trying to distill big insights into kind of concise statements, just as a writerly challenge and just for readers. So, like I remember when I was writing The Happiness Project, the aphorism, like, accept yourself and also expect more from yourself. That took me months and months and months to understand and really, like, distill that down.
That's really good.
Yeah, well, thank you. It's one of my favorites. And so I'd been gathering those as I wrote. But then at a certain point, I was like, oh, wow, I really want to cultivate this form. And then I started really trying to like, look for observations that I could put into Secret of Adulthood.
Well, now I think we should go through some of these aphorisms maybe a little later because I want to get some background for everybody.
It's super interesting for me to know which ones other people
pick
out. I love them all, of course.
Some jumped out at me, and I wrote
that.
And some are really, here's one: what we do every day matters more than what we do once in a while.
Okay, so can I say about that aphorism, that Secret of Adulthood? This is something that I said kind of offhandedly. To me, this seemed almost just obvious. But so many people would kind of repeat it back and found it really useful. And I guess it's just my own rigidity that to me it felt obvious that what we do every day matters more than what we do once in a while. So that's been one that surprised me in how much it seemed to resonate with other people.
I think it's got to be resonating with lots of people. Now, and it's not a concept that's alien to some of your other writings. I mean, I think a whole lot about, your books about various ways of finding happiness or improving the happiness of your current state kind of talk about the importance of habit.
Yes.
So will you talk about the importance of habit?
Well, and that's another secret of adulthood is that habits are the invisible architecture of everyday life.
That's good, too.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Because if we have habits that work for us, it's just so much easier to be happier, healthier, more productive, and more creative. And so, and a lot of times when it comes to happiness, people know what's going to make them happier. Like that they'll be, we know we'll be happier if we read more, we get more sleep, or we exercise more consistently or whatever. But then we have trouble just doing it. And so habit is the way that you put those aims into practice. So that's why I'm interested in habits.
Yeah, and that has appeared a lot of times in your writings. But this particular one, although, usually, obviously we read an aphorism and we relate it to our own lives.
Yeah.
And for me, habits are super important. Like I always make time to bike ride every day because when I wasn't doing that, I was less happy.
Right.
But this particular one, the one that I just read, made me think about being a parent.
Ah.
And I understand that you're a parent, and I'm sure you've applied that to your own life too. What you do every day is so much more important than, springing for Disneyland every once in a while.
The extraordinary effort. Right. No, absolutely. No. And that's what's interesting. I think that's one of the reasons that these aphorisms are useful is because they're short. They sort of have more power in the mind, and you can also think about whether you agree or disagree. I mean, I think there are statements in here that people might disagree with.
Oh, well, I'll get to some of those.
Okay, yeah, one I would say is a friend of mine disagreed with one is, if you don't like a pair of pants, don't pay to get them hemmed.
Well, I agree with that.
Okay,
your friend doesn't agree with that?
No, I was like, in my observation, that never works. But she was like, no, you should. I was like, well, now you know your own mind more clearly, because it gives you something to kind of react against. So that's another benefit.
That's fascinating. So your friend's fixing up all these pants she's
that's
never going to wear?
Apparently so. I find that it never ends well.
No, it can't possibly.
No, but that's what she
I've
said.
come around to thinking that one should get rid of any clothes that one cannot wear right now. Even aspirational clothes for when that diet's done.
Yeah.
Because fashions will change by the time you're thin enough.
No, absolutely, 100%.
Let's go to your background. We'll start at the beginning and work our way forward. So you are from Kansas City.
Yes, Missouri. Very important if you know your Kansas City.
Very different than Kansas City, Kansas.
Yeah, we lived on state line, but we were on the Missouri side. Yep.
And then you found yourself, and we don't have to go through your whole biography, you found yourself at Yale, and then you stayed around to go to their law school because you heard they had a little mom and pop law school.
Yeah.
So your course was very academically inclined, but in the legal profession. You then went and clerked for Sandra Day O'Connor, am I correct?
Yep.
Wow. Okay. So having done all that, what made you say, now I am going to investigate my own and others' happiness rather than continuing with law?
Well, it was a two-step process.
Okay.
So the first thing was switching from law to writing, and then was switching in writing into sort of the happiness area.
Oh, so so
no, because
there was a transitionary period.
The Happiness Project was actually my fourth book. So, like many people, I had been working very hard for 10 years to become an overnight sensation. So I switched to writing, and then switched.
That's right. You wrote some biographies, did you not?
Yes, of Churchill and of JFK. My first book was called Power, Money, Fame, Sex: A User's Guide, which is actually really good preparation for writing about happiness.
Book?
Yes.
Because I wanted to talk to you about that book because
I loved writing that book.
It's funny.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a.
It's very dark.
Is it fair to say it's a parody of a power mad self-help book?
Yes, but is it a parody? That's the question.
Is it?
It kind of operates on both levels.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, no, I had.
I might want to return to that later because I found an angry review.
Nobody ever read that. That book is lost. It's been lost in the sands of time.
I'm going to pick it up because
good.
I was looking into you, researching you for this, and I found that even today on Amazon, it's a polarizing book because a lot of people don't get it.
They don't get it.
Did you find a lot of that when it came out?
Well, one of the things is I absolutely never read reviews of any kind, so I don't know any of that. But yeah, no, I remember a friend of mine said, "You're a very nice person, but this is a very dark book." I was like, okay, but yeah.
And then after that, it was biographies. It was Churchill. It was JFK.
Yep. And then I wrote a strange little book called Profane Waste, which was about why owners destroy their own possessions, which was like a strange little subject that I became absolutely preoccupied with in law school.
Okay, people torching their own property.
Exactly.
Because
under classical property theory, people wouldn't do that, and yet they do that all the time.
Okay, so this will be a spoiler alert for your fourth book, but why do people do that?
To totally own something, like to possess something, to put it out of the reach of others.
Oh, so you destroy it as utterly yours because it can be nobody else's ever again.
Yes. Yep.
That's a little twisted and dark too.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm starting to see why you might have been thinking towards happiness at this point.
Yeah, exactly. Like a little Yeah.
Okay,
Turn toward the light.
So what happened? So now you're a writer.
Yes.
You're no longer
Yeah.
in the law profession. You're probably not thinking of going back.
No.
What turned you towards happiness? Were you unhappy?
You know, I was pretty happy, and but I was stuck on a city bus in the pouring rain, and I had one of those rare opportunities for reflection that you sometimes have, and I thought, what do I want from life anyway? And I thought, well, I want to be happy. But I realized I didn't spend any time thinking about whether I was happy, if I could be happier, was it even possible to make yourself happier? And I thought, well, I should have a happiness project and figure all this out. So I went to the library, got a giant stack of books, and started researching happiness. And at first it was just for my own interest. Like, I will just get very preoccupied with subjects and just do tons and tons of research and note-taking. But this was just so interesting, and there was so much that I wanted to try in my own life, experiment with, and so many things that I wanted to learn about, that eventually I thought, wow, well, maybe this should be my next book project.
That's great.
Yeah,
and so you tried a bunch of stuff.
And so I tried a bunch of stuff.
Tell me what didn't work.
Meditation.
Really? Didn't work for you?
I've tried that 3 times. Who here has tried and, like, meditation doesn't work, right? I mean, yes, thank you.
I'm just saying it doesn't work for me.
Exactly. It's a great tool. I have tried it 3 times, like, really seriously. Did a silent meditation retreat. It's just not a tool that works for me.
Okay.
Another thing, gratitude journal. Very annoyed by my gratitude journal. I found it very irritating. And then
That sounds all braggy. I don't know if I can do that.
Well, I don't know. But then I read that some research suggests you should only do it like every other day or like a few times a week. You shouldn't do it every day. Anyway, I have a lot of gratitude practices. I completely accept that gratitude is super important for a happy life. Yeah. It's just that the gratitude journal didn't work for me. So these are some of the sort of the classic things that I was like, and there's a secret of adulthood. No tool fits every hand. And I think sometimes people think like, well, if it doesn't work for me, something's wrong with me. Or if it doesn't work for you, something's wrong with you. Instead of just saying like, maybe making a to-do list doesn't work for you.
I wish I could convince that very fact to people who keep trying to make me love Radiohead.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I appreciate them.
Yeah. Oh, okay. You'll talk later.
They just don't work for me.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It happens. Yeah.
Okay. So
I don't like the Olympics.
Oh. I have to go.
Yeah. I mean, I don't like to see people lose.
Oh, that is true. I do get that.
Yeah.
Because,
Yeah. They worked so hard.
That's my problem with the NCAA tournament, because a lot of these people are never going to get to play again, and when they lose, it breaks my heart.
Yes,
Okay, but I still love the Olympics, I really do. Okay, so you wrote that book about happiness, and did it make you happier?
So this is the interesting thing. So if I'm lying in bed waiting to fall asleep, or I'm in the subway staring into space, I'm still the same person. And like, I've taken the test and I'm a 7 on the 1 to 10 scale. So I'm pretty happy, which makes me pretty typical. Most people are pretty happy or very happy. Surprisingly, right? I mean, that goes up and down with time and circumstance, whatever. But my experience of my life is much happier because I'm much better about how I spend my time, energy, or money. And like, I will really think like, is this likely to make me happier? Like, oh, I'm thinking about going to my college reunion. Is that a good use of my time and energy? It feels like such a hassle. I don't want to schedule it. Should I spend the money? Like, am I going to even see anybody I want to see?
Yeah.
But I'm like, it's probably going to make you happier because relationships make people happier, and keeping up old relationships tends to make people happier. I'll probably be happier if I go.
So you're going?
I always go. I go to every reunion I possibly can.
Oh, all right.
We're getting a second dog because all the research shows, yes, the research shows, pets make people happier. We have a dog. Our dog made us happier. We're like, we're going to get a second dog.
Get a second dog. I've been thinking about a second dog myself.
Okay.
But I already have 2 cats, too, so it's getting crowdy in there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, more pets.
I'll think okay, so what you're saying is, on the scale of 1 to 10, you are the same number, but your life is you're experiencing more of the happiness.
Yes.
Is that sounds like it might be an important distinction. Knowing that you're happy makes you happy is a better thing than not knowing.
Well, and it's just also how you can be the same person, and because of what you're doing with your conscious thoughts and actions, you're pushing yourself up to the sort of the top of your natural range, or pushing yourself down to the bottom of your natural range. Like if you just even do something like stay up really late binge watching TV every night so that you're chronically underslept, that's going to bring you down.
Sleep is super important, right?
And I'm a sleep zealot.
Okay.
Because of that.
How much do you sleep?
I sleep like 7 to 8 hours.
You can get 7 or 8 hours of sleep a night.
Yes, I
Yeah,
can.
and I always feel better when I do get that much sleep, but I don't get that much
Why
sleep.
don't you get that much sleep?
There's a lot of reasons.
Okay, happiness bully. My sister Elizabeth, who's here. Elizabeth, where are you? Yes, my fabulous sister. Yeah. If you listen to Happier Happier with Gretchen Rubin, you know Elizabeth. She calls me a happiness bully because I will get kind of insistent, and if you tell me something
I'm feeling
like,
it already.
yeah, I want to get into it with you. Like, okay, I want to fix this.
But this is about you, so I get to dodge that bullet right now.
Okay, I'll get you later, man.
I bet you will.
Yeah, get your email, and we're going to go deep into your sleep.
You were talking about natural happiness range just
Yeah.
almost a nanosecond ago before
Yeah.
we detoured it to the unimportant issue of my sleep.
Yeah.
And does everyone have a natural range? Is there a certain amount of happiness that is innate, learned, or chemical?
So researchers estimate that about 50% of happiness is genetically determined.
Mm-hmm.
So some people are born Tiggers and some people are born Eeyores, and that's
Yeah.
pretty much hardwired. Then about 10 to 20% is something called life circumstances. So that might be things like health, income, education, marital status, things like that. And then all the rest is a product of our conscious thoughts and actions. So that's what I think about, is like, given who you are and your circumstances, what can you do with your conscious thoughts and actions?
Right,
What
so
can I do with my conscious thoughts and actions?
So your goal is not to magically transform somebody,
Yeah.
make them jump 5.5 points
Yes.
on the scale,
Right.
because they're not going to do that.
No, they're not going to.
They got to
No.
make the most of what happiness they have.
Yes.
And
yeah. Yeah. But we all have that range. Yeah.
yeah. No, I'm definitely in the Tigger range. which
Are
is-
you? Oh, good. That's great.
No, it's good to be there. I got
It
to tell
is.
you.
Yeah.
Okay, so we talked about habits. Another thing that you talk about that I feel like I need to do better in my life, so I'm going to have you talk about it, is, for want of a better term, all the various ways that one can declutter and reorganize one's
yes.
life and one's environment. That seems to be a big theme for you.
Yes, and just today I spent a very happy couple of hours decluttering my sister's office.
Because you live in New York and your sister lives here.
Yes, and she's
Now,
very
if I had a
messy.
sister that wanted to come over and declutter my office, that would increase me beyond Tigger levels.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
my
I'll come
sister-
over myself.
Oh, you're welcome to
Yeah.
on that, as long as you
Yeah.
stay out of my sleep
My
habits.
favorite thing to do. Yeah.
Is it important to everyone to have a decluttered environment?
No.
Okay.
No. People have a very different level of how comfortable they feel. And of course, this is a huge source of conflict because one person really needs a lot of order to feel comfortable, and another person in a couple or in an office or roommate group is much more comfortable at a lower level. And then there are people who are truly clutter blind. And these are the people who really just do not see it. They don't notice that the cabinets are open. They do not notice the junk mail on the counter. It doesn't bother them.
That's got to be pretty common. I find that like just about anything that's in your day-to-day environment, you stop seeing.
Well, that's true too. It kind of becomes the wallpaper. But for some people, there's a very, very high level.
Really?
Yes. Well, you know them. Like, you can spot those people. I remember I had a friend where she said her husband, she wanted to see how far she could push it, and so they came back from a vacation, and so she opened the suitcase in front of the front door so that you had to like walk around an open suitcase that was just like overflowing with clothes, and she's like, how long before he does something with it? And it was like 3 weeks she broke.
Okay.
You know, she's like, I can't live like this. He doesn't, he was like, I don't even know what you're talking about. He had never noticed.
Wow, are they still together?
Yes, but she does more clutter clearing than he does.
But is he happier when he's in a decluttered environment? I ask because
I think marginally, but not as much
not
as
as much as she is.
Not as much as the clutter clearing type of people assume.
Is Elizabeth happier, your sister, in a decluttered environment? Or is she just like rolling her eyes while you reorganize her office?
I think, well, one time I came over and I did a whole thing, and it was time for me to go, and I looked at her accusingly before I left for the airport, and I was like, you're glad to see me go. And she said, but I was so glad you came. So I think marginally she likes it, and then she can find stuff. Like today, she found that she wanted to have overhead ring lights, and she discovered that she already had 2 overhead ring lights that had just gotten lost. One she said she didn't recognize at all. She has no idea where it came from.
Oh,
So it's like,
accidental.
I don't know. It's in your office.
She probably borrowed it from somebody, not realizing that she actually had one. That's how it would operate in my household.
I don't know, but this is the advantage.
You found them both.
She found that there's advantages of clutter clearing because these things come to light. Like you find things that you're looking for. That's one of my. So in the back of the book, there's like most of these are more transcendent in general, but I love a hack.
There's a practical kitchen sink laundry list in the end. Let me just find
and
the
one
name
of
the chapter.
in the back, like simple secrets of adulthood that are just like the little hacks that I couldn't resist. I submitted them with the manuscript, and I thought my editor would say, leave these out. Why are you putting these in? And she loved them, so they're in the back. But one of them is, if you can't find something, clean up, because it always works. It always works.
That's great. Although here's one: beware of procrastinating cleaning or organizing as an excuse to delay work.
Well,
I feel like maybe you do that.
I do 100%. And another secret of adulthood is that the opposite of a profound truth is also true. So it's very good to clear clutter, but it's also dangerous to clear clutter. Yes, I procrastinate by clearing clutter. Like, I think I need to alphabetize all the books in my office right now. It's like, no, you do not.
That means there's something you're not writing that you're supposed to.
A friend of mine said, I've been thinking about switching fonts. And I was like, let me stop you right there. That does not work.
Wow. I do a lot of thinking about fonts, I got to tell you.
And then you're like, 12 point, maybe 14 point. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. We touched on. No. Before we get to Elizabeth and your show, is there anything else about the decluttering and clearing thing? Like, you're advising us to do it. Is it something that you always did, or in this pursuit of happiness, you have gotten better about organizing and decluttering your life?
Well, I think I'm just in this process, I'm constantly sort of looking for all the little subtopics in the larger subject of happiness, and I'm just working my way through them. But one of the reason why I turned to Outer Order is that I was always very puzzled by my disproportionate response to clearing clutter. Like, it made me feel much better than it should. Like, given how important it was, which is not very, in the context of a happy life, a messy car or, an overflowing in basket or something like that is not a big deal. And yet when I would clear clutter, I would just get this disproportionate lift. I mean, this is why I imposed myself on my sister. I'm way more excited about all the clear counter space on her treadmill desk than she is. Like, I get a huge buzz from it. She's like, oh, this is nice. Now I have more space. That's what puzzled me. I'm like, why is it that it's giving me more than it seems like it should? And then other people would tell me the same thing, that they also felt like it gave you more than a lift than you might think. A friend of mine said, I finally cleared my fridge, and now I know I can switch careers. And I was like, I get it.
I don't.
Yeah, no, you don't. So you don't get that feeling of space.
I like it when it happens.
Okay. But you don't get like a buzz of creativity or like feeling of possibility when you just clear things out, because I really do.
No, I don't. Having been cleared, I think now having an environment where I feel more welcomed, even if it's myself who welcomed me, yes, that I get.
Yeah.
But the act of doing it, it's.
No,
although for me, the act of cooking kind of does that.
I do it to comfort myself. Like if I'm feeling blue, I'll like look for something to clear. But see, I don't cook, so this is interesting. So maybe we have the same. Okay.
And it's not just the meal afterwards, it's the act of doing it. So I completely relate to that.
Yeah, so maybe it serves the same function.
And I would say, certainly with cooking and decluttering, it's one of those addictions that even if our responses are disproportionate, the importance of it, it's not necessarily a bad thing, because you're just getting a hit of dopamine anyway for free.
Exactly. Yeah. And you're doing something that's useful and creative or is beneficial. Yeah. A
beneficial problem, a beneficial mental problem we both have.
But see, cooking isn't for me.
Let's talk about you have a podcast with Elizabeth.
Yes.
Okay. The first thing I want to say.
Okay, for people who listen to the podcast, is it weird to hear my voice coming out of my face? It's weird, right? Yes. And if you saw Elizabeth talk, you would be like, huh, I didn't think she'd look like that. I don't know what I thought she'd look like, but I didn't think they'd look like that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird for
well,
people.
you have that experience too as a podcaster. People are like,
yeah,
that's
for
you?
more than that, the Wait, Don't Tell Me shows, because we get to meet the audience afterwards. You know, you do a podcast, you don't really meet the audience.
Sure.
But after Wait, Don't Tell Me, everybody wants to come up and tell me how different I look
Yes,
and why.
right,
Yeah.
right.
I don't know why they think that information is important to me.
Right. But I think it's just startling.
Yeah. I think that's it. They want to convey how startled they are.
Yeah.
Okay, so you and Elizabeth have been doing this podcast for 10 years?
Yes, 10 years plus.
Now,
Yeah.
yeah.
Thank you.
You can applaud that.
Thank you.
You can actually applaud as much as you want.
Yeah, thank you.
So, I bring this up for several reasons. Number one, you frequently write about the importance of relationships in people's lives. Like, obviously, that is a garden that we should all be tending.
Ancient philosophers and contemporary scientists all agree that is a key to happiness, maybe the key to happiness.
Is good relationships.
Is relationships.
Now, I take it you've always had a close relationship with Elizabeth?
Yes, yeah.
So how has it been getting this, I have to talk to her once a week because we're making a podcast kind of thing?
Oh, and it's way more than that, as you know, like
Yes.
you're preparing it.
Yeah.
It is amazing. Like
it's great.
yes, I am so lucky. I'm 5 years older, but we're very, very close. And it's the funny thing where it's either a great idea to do something like this with a sibling, or it's a terrible idea to do it with a sibling. And like, you know which kind of sibling you have. And so for us, it's been this amazing sisterly adventure that has just like made sure that we like just talk all the time, and we've had all these adventures together.
I completely get it. Like you guys, I have a sister in New York. I live here in LA, like Elizabeth does, who I'm extraordinarily close to. And this might inspire us to finally do that podcast.
It's really
because
fun.
I talk to her several times a week.
Yeah.
There's no reason why we're not doing a podcast.
Yeah. Well, it was Elizabeth always thought we should do a radio show, and I'm like, well, what would it be about? And she's like, well, we're just like our brilliant ideas. I was like, okay. So yeah.
But you kind of what you've hung on the podcast. The podcast is entitled "The Happiness." Happier. Happier with Gretchen Rubin. Yeah. Okay. So you kind of hung that on what your career was anyway.
Yeah.
Do you want to tell everybody a little bit about what we would hear on a podcast every day? I listened to like 4 of them in the last couple of weeks.
Okay.
And I really do like it a lot. It's very entertaining, and it's a good hang.
Oh, good. Yeah. Parasocial relationships, like they're so fun. So it's all about just how to make your life happier, and so as part of your ordinary day, without spending a lot of extra time, energy, or money, because nobody has a lot of extra time, energy, or money. So we have like things you can try this at homes, like things you can do. There are hacks, which is the simple, like kind of fun little things that just make your life better. We sometimes do interviews. We'll do. Give ourselves demerits and gold stars. We do that once a week, and then also once a week we do one that's a little bit more loose and conversational. We do that twice a month. Yeah.
Oh, fantastic! And so now Elizabeth, just as long as I'm promoting the entire Rubin family, Elizabeth has a spin-off podcast that's part of your flagship. The Empire.
Called Happier in Hollywood, which is about how to be happier in Hollywood in a backbiting, superficial, fundamentally insane world. So it's partly about writing and how to be happier.
Can confirm that checks
out.
Yeah. Okay, so you can get that wherever your podcast. How many of you are listening to it already? Oh,
Yay!
Great. Well, more of you should. It's super great.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna go somewhere completely different now. Let's go to the Four Tendencies.
Oh.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Because this is interesting. You wrote a book. I think it's called The Four Tendencies.
Yeah. Kind of on the nose. Yeah.
You've categorized 4 different kinds of people, and obviously, whenever you categorize people bleed in between the categories.
Not so much with these, actually.
Really?
Not
okay.
A little bit, but not much.
Yeah, because I took the test.
What are you?
Well, apparently I'm an obliger.
Okay, well that's the biggest tendency. That's the one that has the biggest group of. That's the biggest group of people.
I don't know that I am, but I realize that I might be, because if you told me yes, you definitely are, I would agree just to please you.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
But let's go through these 4 tendencies, because it's a really fun way. Because once you kind of know what you are, then you have the opportunity to decide, do I want to be that way, or how can I change or even enhance what I am?
Right. Okay, so if people want to take a quiz and find out what they are, you can just go to gretchenrubin.com/quiz, and it's like 9 questions, and it will tell you what you are and give you sort of a little report. But I'll just describe them really briefly, and people know what they are. They know the people around them are.
This makes intuitive sense.
No, we could do Game of Thrones. We could do Better Call Saul. We could do The Office. They're very obvious once you know what you're looking for. Okay, so this divides people into upholders, questioners, obligers, and rebels. So, what it's looking at is how you respond to expectations. Outer expectations, like a work deadline, and inner expectations, like you want to get back into meditation.
Okay.
Okay. So, whether you meet or resist outer and inner expectations is what makes you an upholder, a questioner, an obliger, or a rebel. So, I'll go through them, and then we'll have everybody raise their hands. So upholders are people who readily meet outer and inner expectations. So they meet the work deadline, they keep the New Year's resolution without much fuss. They want to know what other people expect from them, but their expectations for themselves are just as important. They tend to be very focused on like to-do lists, scheduling. They don't need a lot of supervision or accountability. They can be rigid. I know this because I'm an upholder. I'm often called rigid.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And so their motto is, discipline is my freedom. Then there are questioners. Questioners question all expectations. They'll do something.
Do they?
That's right. Yeah, you got it. And if you're thinking, I question the validity of this framework, you're probably a questioner. So they need reasons, rationale. They tend to love to customize. They need to know why. They sometimes fall into analysis paralysis because their need for perfect information makes it hard for them to move forward or to make a decision. So they have to know why they're doing something. If it meets their inner expectation, they'll do it no problem. If it fails their inner expectation, they'll resist. So their motto is, I'll comply if you convince me why. Then there are obligers. This is the biggest tendency for both men and women. This is the one that has the most people in it. You either are an obliger or you have many obligers in your life. They readily meet outer expectations, but they struggle to meet inner expectations. So these are people who say, why can I keep my promises to other people, but I struggle to keep my promises to myself? And the short answer, if you were an obliger, is give yourself outer accountability, even for an inner expectation.
Ooh,
so if you want
that sounds almost like an aphorism.
Yes, well, and that's what works for obligers. If you want to read more, join a book club. If you want to exercise more, work out with a trainer, or work out with a friend who's annoyed if you don't show up, or raise money for a charity, or think of your duty to be a role model.
So take those internal expectations and put them outward where you know you'll listen to them.
Exactly. You just need them on the external. And they make great leaders, great team members, great friends, great family, because they'll go the extra mile. I've had employers tell me that they want a screen for obligers. They only want to hire obligers. I never tell them, but because they're the people who are the most likely to go the extra mile. So their motto is, you can count on me, and I'm counting on you to count on me. And then finally, rebels.
Rebels.
This is the smallest group. Mm-hmm. They resist all expectations, outer and inner alike. So they want to do what they want to do in their own way, in their own time. They can do anything they want to do, anything they choose to do. But if you ask or tell them to do something, they're very likely to resist. And typically, they don't tell themselves what to do. Like, they don't sign up for the 10 a.m. spin class on Saturday because they think, I don't know what I'm going to want to do this weekend, and just the idea that somebody's telling me to show up is going to annoy me. So their motto is, you can't make me, and neither can I.
That's great.
Yes. So, okay, so let's...
So succinctly put.
Yeah. So
Not rigid, just succinct.
Yeah, well, I aim for succinctness always. Okay, so who's an upholder? My hand's up, I'm an upholder. Okay, questioners. Questioners question all expectations, outer and inner alike. Obligers.
Yeah.
Obligers. And then rebels. Yeah, There you go. Okay.
Of the two people who identified as rebels, did you plan in advance to come here tonight? Because if you did, you're full of shit. You're not a rebel, right?
Yeah, they like to be typically.
Yeah, they have to be, right?
So it's fun to see. Yeah,
that is fantastic.
There's a lot more on I've written about it so much because I love it.
I was fascinated to come across it. Okay, I want to get to. I mean, I know that because the clock is ticking. Can I read a few of these that just jumped out at me so that you guys can hear some of them? There's enough of them that you'll still want to buy the book. I promise you. A quest is more fun than a jaunt.
Yeah.
It's more fun to travel to the flea markets of Paris than to travel to Paris.
Yes.
That is beautiful.
This is one that people might disagree with, though. Like, I believe that. I find that. It's so much more fun to have a quest.
Yeah, to have a reason to do something. I am 100% behind you, but you articulated it beautifully because, yes, the idea of going to Paris it's a fun idea. Yeah,
it's fun. It's
but if I know what restaurant I want to go to,
right,
I will buy that ticket. That one's terrific.
Or you're like, I am on the hunt for globes from thrift stores. It's like then you have the fun of the hunt, and I don't know.
And you could find something else in that thrift store, but you're in it for a reason.
You're in it for a reason. A quest is more fun than a jaunt.
Love it. Learning when, how, and if we wish to conform is one of the most important achievements of childhood. I want you to just tell me a little bit about that one, because I love it. Yeah. And how did you come across that in your...
Well, I was just thinking about, like, we talk a lot about the values of nonconformity, which are very true. But sometimes you want to be able to conform. And being able to, if you want to, I think is very valuable.
It is. I loved reading this because nonconformity was hugely valued in my household to the point where, when I was growing up, to the point where conformity was viewed as a personal failing. And so for years I struggled with this idea of like, you know, I chose to learn how to conform so that I could be popular. And dealt with incredible guilt feelings that we can talk about later when I'm paying you for it.
Well, so as I was I had this gigantic document of all my aphorisms, and then I picked out the ones that were secrets of adulthood, that like were useful in some way, and then I left out the ones that were mere observations, like the tulip is an empty flower. What's up with that? I don't know. The tulip is an empty flower, but that's just a mere observation, so I left that out.
I would have, because it doesn't mean anything.
It doesn't. It's just an observation. I think it's interesting, but then I also left out my dark aphorisms. Oh. I have some kind of bleak aphorisms, and one of them is...
Yeah, come on! They're not in here.
Why do all nonconformists dress alike? It's very judgy,
awesome.
Right?
That is awesome.
I mean, that's very judgy. I don't know. So I left that out.
They shouldn't even have places they all go so that we can see that they're dressed alike, too, but they do. Oh, we touched on this earlier when we were talking about decluttering. It's easier to notice the exceptional than the familiar, so to observe the obvious requires intense attention.
Yes, I feel like that all the time, that I'm constantly just trying to understand the obvious. Like with the Four Tendencies, once you know the Four Tendencies, they're very, very obvious.
Yeah.
But to see what was obvious was so hard. I think it's because the exceptional stands out. It's what you see all the time is very hard to notice.
What's interesting is that you've come across so many Zen-like, koan-like truths.
I love a koan.
And you don't like meditating.
No. But I love a bit. I'll read the koans. But
the koans are great. Yeah. Okay. The opposite of a profound truth is also true.
Yes, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is it?
There you go.
I read that one. I'm like, I'm going to highlight that because I'm going to need Gretchen to explain that.
Okay. Absence makes the heart grow fonder. Okay. Out of sight, out of mind. Well,
okay. Murder is bad.
Well, is that a profound truth?
I think so. I don't know. No, I'm absolutely being difficult.
Maybe I should say often. Yeah.
Yeah. But if you say often in an aphorism,
one of the things is like
bailing.
How much do you qualify? That's when my legal training, like I want to put in the sometimes your value may differ, but sometimes you have to kind of embrace the drop my quality of the form.
You're right. As a lawyer, as someone who went to Yale Law School, it must drive you a little bit crazy to write an aphorism because there's fine print that you're not writing.
No, I do. I always want to do the fine print. Yeah, and actually Samuel Johnson, I should know this aphorism by heart, but he has something where you have to be 85% accurate or else you'll be incredibly tiresome. But he said it in a very Dr. Johnson kind of way.
Any other dark aphorisms, by the way?
I have lots of dark aphorisms.
I'm just curious.
Gretchen Rubin After Dark.
Are you? You should do a sequel or an addendum.
Maybe. It's the negativity bias. Everybody wants the bleak ones. Let's see. Another one is praise is a form of judgment. Encouragement can be an attempt to control.
That is super true. Super dark.
Do you think that's true?
Absolutely.
Okay.
100% behind that.
Okay.
Yeah. Once someone has elevated to somebody praising you is is a way of elevating oneself into the position of being able to judge.
Yes.
And
Okay. And so this is to the point of like things that are obvious are hard to notice.
Yeah.
The thing that I was noticing is, why is it that all these people who are famous and praised to the skies and everybody is constantly talking about how great they are incredibly defensive and thin-skinned? Like, why is that?
I wonder if there's any current examples that
right.
to mind.
But then I was thinking, an exercise that I also often do with myself is I say, it's not despite, it's because. So if I'm saying, despite the fact that they are so praised, they are thin-skinned and defensive, I'm like, because they are so frequently praised, therefore they are thin-skinned and defensive. And I was like, because they're constantly being judged. And anytime you're being judged, people can judge differently.
You're giving them power.
You're giving them power, and you're feeding off of the praise. And so it makes sense that you would start to feel more and more defensive. Because somebody who's anonymous and nobody comments on doesn't have that feeling of being judged. And then encouragement, this came out of my study of rebels. Because often rebels will say, don't encourage me. Don't even say like, oh, good job, because the minute you start encouraging or tell me, that's a form of trying to get me to do something. If
It's a form of control. That's absolutely right.
It's an attempt. It can be an attempt to control.
That is great.
Okay.
I'm glad I flagged that one.
There you go.
That's terrific.
That one's not even in there.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I didn't flag that one. You brought it up.
I brought it up.
I get no credit for it, and I praise you for thinking of it.
Okay, that's good. But now I'm feeling all defensive.
Yeah. I love this one. Decisions will be made by choice or by chance, because not deciding is a decision.
Yeah.
Not choosing is a choice.
Yeah. No, I mean, we've all had that happen where you just let it slide, and then the decision's made for you. I mean, even with things like invitations. It's like, if I just ignore my mail long enough, well, okay, I can't go.
That day has passed and you didn't show up at that dinner.
Yeah,
yes.
and then it's gone. Yeah.
Is there any value in doing that, or is that always just sort of a negative thing, an avoidance technique that one should avoid? One should avoid avoiding.
Well, one thing I actually have written about a lot is drift, because drift is the decision we make by not deciding. And we either get carried forward by circumstances, or we do what other people want us to do, or we can't think of anything else. And
is there something good about that? Should we all Forrest Gump our way through lives?
Well, like, I drifted into law school. I was like, I don't know what to do with myself. I'm good at research and writing. My father's a really happy lawyer. You know, he says it's fun. He didn't put any pressure on me to do it, but I was like, I can always change my mind later. It'll keep my options open. It's a great education.
All turned out to be true.
It did, and sometimes drift works out, and that's part of what makes it confusing, but I did not mindfully choose it. And so I think if you are truly in a place of suspension, when you're like, I'm letting information come in, I'm waiting to decide, that can be positive, and you're letting events play out so that you can make a better choice. But that can very easily become drift without noticing it, and drift is just letting yourself be carried forward. And I feel like it's sometimes it works out okay, but sometimes it doesn't. And
gotcha.
Sometimes
no, I can tell just constitutionally you're opposed to drift. You came out here to reorganize your sister's office.
Exactly. But like, you become a doctor because both your parents are doctors. You take a job because somebody offered you a job. Sometimes that's wonderful. Sometimes that's great. You like find yourself, but then sometimes not.
Okay, that makes sense to me. Sometimes I like surfing on the drift. I have to be honest with you.
Okay, well, your mileage may differ. You can agree. You can disagree.
Oh, I love this one too. Of course I love this one. Enthusiasm is a form of social courage.
Yes.
That's just great.
Right, because it's so much easier and safer to be
negative.
To
not be attached to something.
Right, and to point out the limitations and the problems, and to really put yourself out there. I always think for enthusiasm, the patron saint of enthusiasm is Julia Child. Right? Her enthusiasm for French cooking transformed the way everybody thinks about food, because she just loved it.
Oh, it radiates from her too. You can still watch those old black and white TV shows.
And the thing about enthusiasm is it's goofy, and it is kind of playful.
Yeah.
And it's energizing.
And it's courageous.
And it's courageous. Yeah, I do feel like that.
That's terrific. Now, I just made Julia Child's French onion soup, and she has like 6 different recipes out there, so if you want to know which one to use, just ask me after this,
Okay. You found the one.
I found the one that tastes the most like the thing I want. So
Okay,
yes.
okay.
Does anyone have a question?
And you get a gold star if you ask the first question because nobody likes to ask the first question.
I'm a big fan of your podcast, and I'm an upholder. I'm graduating college this quarter, and I'm going to law school. Thank you, guys.
Yay!
I'm going to law school, and so I've been thinking about drift and transitions a lot. So I'm wondering if you have any tips specifically for happiness in transitions when your life is changing a lot.
Well, get enough sleep. I always think that's always important. So you're going to law school. Yeah. Think about your relationships. Try to figure out how to stay in touch with the people who are important to you, and
That's
also forge new relationships. And here's some interesting research, and we talked about this on the podcast because I think it's so interesting. Is that when you get to a new place, like you get to law school, for the first 3 weeks there is a certain kind of social energy where people are more open. So this is anytime you're coming into a place where there's a lot of new people coming together. So maybe it's people coming into a whole new office all at the same time, or you're on a cruise ship, or you're at a retreat, or you're going to law school. At the beginning, and it lasts for about 3 weeks, there will be an openness, and you can just approach somebody and talk to them, and it seems fine. It's socially acceptable. And during that period, you should really take advantage of it and try to meet as many people as you can and sort of extend your social network, because then it will start to close. It doesn't stay like that.
Interesting.
And people will start to form in groups, and exchanges that what would have been kind of normal might start to feel a little bit creepy. And you won't feel as, people won't feel as available to each other. But one of the things research shows is that, with with relationships, quantity does matter. Quality matters, which is how much you feel like you can, rely on somebody.
Sure.
And then also interconnectedness. Do people know each other? So that it's not just a bunch of isolated relationships, but it's the social network that gives you more of a feeling of coherence and belonging. And something like entering into law school is a really good time to try to really build that out, and then that will really that could really persist for a long time.
So meet as many people as possible, but don't
Yeah.
lose sleep over. Are transitions like that, going from something that rigidly structured to something else that's structured differently, is that more difficult for you upholders?
Yes.
Okay, I thought
Yes.
so.
No. We thrive in routine
In a system.
and in very, very clear expectations. A lot of times upholders will struggle when it's not clear what the rules are or what success looks like, or when when you have to be very flexible, or when things change suddenly.
Yeah.
They're very.
Well, I think your advice was perfectly targeted at our upholder.
Big fan of the Four Tendencies, and I did buy your book, your signed autograph book, so I'll get into that next. Do you have any other work in that area? Have you done any more side projects? When I listen to your podcast, I'm always looking for how those expectations work, and I'm looking for more information and more experience from you.
On the Four Tendencies?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got a course that's on the Four Tendencies. I think I have a training thing on the Four Tendencies. If you just go to my website and look under the Four Tendencies, there's a whole bunch of, I've got kind of nutshell guides. I've got a thing that you can do if you want to find out what somebody's tendency is, but you can't ask them to take the quiz, either because they're a questioner who thinks, why am I going to waste my time taking this quiz? Or there's a rebel who's saying, you can't make me take that quiz. Or you're in a social situation where you really can't say to somebody, I really need you to just take 10 minutes and take this quiz so that I can figure out how to handle you. So if you go on, there's just a ton of stuff there.
There's a little tendency cottage industry.
Yeah, there's a whole little thing. So I'm so happy to hear that it strikes a chord with you.
Any
Yes.
ever inclination to add a fifth tendency?
No.
Okay, it's just those four.
It's just a sort. Well,
You're not going to meet somebody so weird that you're okay, you get your own category.
I will say this: there are situations where people have been pushed to the extreme. So this is people who have had a near-death experience, or who have been through addiction, or who have are taking medication that fundamentally has changed their personality. They kind of break out of the Four Tendencies. They don't seem to follow any of the patterns or a pattern of their own. But I haven't been able to talk to that many people who are like that to see if maybe if I had
Figure out
100
what's
of
going on
them,
there. Yeah.
I could figure out a different pattern. But it's very, very unusual. It's
Interesting.
very unusual.
Cool. All right. I'll keep looking for you. See if I can
Okay.
find anybody.
Actually, that was exactly what I was going to ask you about.
Oh,
Because I know that in past interviews you've said that the Four Tendencies are pretty stable, but
Yeah.
I was wondering about like with mental health issues,
Yeah.
untreated mental health issues versus
Yeah.
when people seek treatment, and if their tendencies shift or change
Yeah.
in those situations.
yeah, I think you could see that. Yeah. And it's interesting, there are certain things that people often say to me, and I just don't have the big data that I would need to analyze it, but like a lot of people talk about ADHD and rebel, and I just don't know if
Right.
that's true, but a lot of rebels have said that to me, like, have you heard this? So I like how all these things play out in like a gigantic way is I don't have access
You
to
can't
that
study
kind of
everybody, but
information.
it does, at
Yeah.
least in
No,
some of those cases, like particularly for me, thinking of people I know, the addiction and recovery cycle really does strike me as something that might seem like a category hopper.
Yeah. Like I knew somebody who was an obliger, went through addiction, and then came out of it, and she just wasn't an obliger in the same way. But but like she didn't fall into any of the other categories, and I just sort of never been able to make sense of it.
Super interesting.
Yeah.
I'm curious if, as someone who's sort of spent so many years researching happiness, if you feel like a certain pressure to always be happy and always be positive.
That question is on one of my note cards.
Oh, yeah,
it's a
yeah,
great question.
I don't. You would think that I did.
You would.
You would
Yes.
think so, but I don't. And the people close to me would be like, "Oh no, she's totally fine." Like being in a like bad mood or being petulant or whatever.
So you don't
being
have a bad
snarky.
day and think, I can't have a bad day. I'm the happiness lady.
No,
Okay.
I don't feel that way. Now, I do have a lot of tools. So if I'm like, wow, I'm having a really bad day, I'm like, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do, like, I will go through a whole system of things to try to, like, make myself feel better. So I think I'm maybe more active with it. But I definitely will be, and I'm a very irritable person. I mean, that's one of the things that I work on constantly. I'm just very irritable. I'm very kind of high strung.
Right.
And I'm very rigid too. So if things change, like I get very, very flustered, or if like I don't have enough time at the airport, like it just, it makes, I get very tense going through security. Like,
This book tour must be a delight to be with you on.
something? Yeah. So yeah, but So. No, I don't feel pressured though. I don't feel
That's
pressure.
great.
Yeah.
Well, as you
Yeah.
said, you do have all these great
I have these-
adjustment and coping mechanisms.
Well, I
that
do
you yourself
that. I
have
do
authored.
have. I have a bazillion of those.
Yeah.
Like that is my gig.
I just verbally insult the cat.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cleverly, so that he doesn't even know what I'm talking about.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
No harm is
Take
done.
it out on the
Yeah.
cat.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm a big follower. My sister and I have a podcast where we follow you.
Yes!
The Happier Lady.
The happier ladies are here. Okay. That's so exciting.
That's
yes,
terrific.
and I'm here with my parents, Steve and Clara. I brought them out.
Yeah, okay.
We're so excited to be
Oh,
here.
that's so great.
Okay.
Oh my gosh, that's so exciting. Yes.
My question for you
Well,
is...
explain what the happier ladies
Okay,
is.
so that my sister and I have spent, almost 10 years listening to your podcast and discussing it. My sister moved to Massachusetts, and so we are on opposite coasts. And about 2 years ago, we decided to have a podcast where we recap what you've discussed.
It's
And what
amazing.
Liz has discussed.
It's amazing.
It's almost been 2 years. It's amazing. It's so much fun. And
But can I say, like, I listened to a couple, but then it kind of gives me the heebie-jeebies.
I understand. I can't listen to it.
Like, I'm so excited that it's there, but I'm like, it's, yeah.
I
Oh,
don't
it's
listen
so amazing.
to myself. My sister's like, it's really good. You should listen to it. I'm like, no, I heard it once.
Yeah.
So my question is about, I'm so excited about the open door research that you're doing.
Yeah.
My youngest daughter is a senior. She's going to be leaving for college in August. I
Wow.
am distraught.
Yes.
And I wonder what you've learned so far in your research, or what advice or tips you can offer.
Oh,
Why don't
yeah.
you start by telling everybody what your
Yeah.
open door research is?
So my next book is going to be about the empty nest stage, which I'm rebranding Open Door because I don't like the empty. A lot of people don't like empty nest as a metaphor. So I'm calling it the Open Door. And this is going to be about like dealing with this period, which for a lot of people is kind of a forced reckoning of adulthood. Like so many things change. And of course some people sort of experience when their first child goes, or, when their child goes into the military instead of to college or whatever. But whatever you experience it, for a lot of people, that's a big moment of self-reflection. And one of the things I love is anything that forces us to stop and reflect, whether that's New Year's Eve or halfway day or our birthday or whatever it might be. And so I'm really interested in this as a period of like that.
And what have you been finding so far?
So what I've found so far is that there's 12 areas in which people experience a change. So it might be a change of time, a change of the organization of space, change of purpose, change of identity, change in your relationship with your sweetheart or spouse if you have one, change your relationship with friends, your parents. So there's all these. The one thing that I would say, and this harkens back to what we were saying about relationships, is the one thing that seems to be one of the most important things to do and most universal things to do is to really think about the other relationships in your life. Your relationships to your friends, your relationships to your own parents, if your parents are still alive. Interestingly, what a lot of people do in this phase is they get closer to their own siblings. That a lot of times in kind of the chaos of family life, you kind of put your siblings on the back burner, and this is a time when a lot of times siblings reconnect. Obviously, you are in great shape for that. You are reconnected with your sister.
Yeah, that's great.
So that's not that, but for a lot of people, that's it. But one thing that I've noticed that is very poignant is that a lot of people, when their kids are around, they think they have a lot of friends. They think they have a very active social group, but what they have is friendly acquaintances. They have the families that they always see at the sideline of the games. They have the families that go to all the performances.
Oh, so you're not just losing the kids.
No, and so you've got group texts coming in. You've got all kinds of plans. You're seeing people for years. You feel close to them, but you've never really turned them into an actual friend. Like you've never done something with someone individually. You've never moved it out of that context. So people they don't think like, oh, I have no friends, or I only have a few friends, or my friends live across the country because they're my friends from college. They feel like, oh, I have a lot of friends. They don't realize
they have less than they think.
That once those soccer games stop, those acquaintances may very well vanish.
Drift away, yeah.
And so that is something that you can really be thinking about in advance, which is how do I make sure that I really have people there that I have really a true friendship with, not just a friendly acquaintances. Friendly acquaintances are amazing. They add so much to our life.
Sure.
But you have to turn them into real friends.
You have to take responsibility for them.
And that's a shock. I think many, many people are very, very shocked.
As a father of a 17-year-old and a 12-year-old, I'm suddenly going through my mental Rolodex and thinking what I have to now reinforce because they're leaving.
Right.
No,
like who are the people that you want to turn into a real friend?
Right. They're in my band.
Yeah.
You have a podcast where you and your sister in Massachusetts discuss Gretchen and Elizabeth's podcast.
It's me. Hi.
Okay. Oh, okay, you. Is it okay if my sister and I do a podcast on which we discuss your podcast?
I would love that. My sister and I would be delighted. I would not listen to it, but I encourage it.
Oh, of course not. Yeah, no, I wouldn't expect you to.
Yeah, I love that. I love that so. Okay, I'm so excited that you're here. That's so fun.
Hi, good evening. I have a question. How do you balance the happiness and the guilt? I am so happy to be here, but as a mother of 4 kids, 17, 5, 4, and 1, they're home, I am feeling guilty. But I'm happy. So how do you balance, that happiness and guilt, or that guilt getting to that happiness? There's always somebody's going to get hurt or taking time from somebody. How do you balance that?
Can I ask if you're an obliger?
I am.
Yes.
Yeah, that tracks.
Yeah. That is that concern comes up with a lot with obligers because they have this feeling of I can't, it's hard to take time for myself. And so I think it's just about creating outer accountability for doing all the things that you need to do to make yourself happier. And it's interesting because one thing that a lot of people will say that's very useful is I need to take care of my own happiness so that I can take care of others' happiness. I need to have my own emotional charge so that I can attend to others. And that if it's the old thing about put on your own oxygen mask first before you take care of others, because like you can't take care of others if you don't take care of yourself. And obligers definitely fall into burnout or obliger rebellion.
Sure.
And so you really need to take care of yourself. Now I have to say that as an upholder, when people would say something like that to me, I would always resist it because I was like, do it for yourself. Don't worry about them. Just do it for yourself. That's a very upholder thing to say.
Absolutely.
That's why upholders sometimes seem cold. Because we're just like, oh, hey, 4 kids. Sorry, I got my own plans tonight. Like, have fun. And people are like, that's a little cold. That's very upholder. And obligers don't have that. They don't have the kind of the drawback or the benefit of that. So think about doing it so that you can you can serve those others with your happiness, because it definitely is true. I mean, that, and the research does show that happier people, they're healthier, they're more concerned with the problems of the world, they have a better, they're more tolerant, and they have a better perspective, better sense of humor. It really is true that if you work on your own happiness, you'll be able to help others with their happiness better.
That's good advice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not convinced, and I just took your test. I'm a questioner.
Okay, there you go.
I'm not convinced that it's just 50% or whatever the percentages you gave for the happiness.
For genetics?
Yeah, for genetics. I'm thinking of myself, and if I had achieved love at a certain point in my life, or money, success in a career, it would have pushed the happiness button much higher, right? And those things I'm short, for example, right? Like there's only certain things that I can achieve because of that, or I have more of a negative bias than someone else. Like, can you convince me more that I have that agency? Because something in me wants to, but man, it seems not true.
Well, 50% is genetically determined, and 10 to 20% is life circumstances. So it's the rest of it. So you think it's more than 50% is genetically determined? But actually, I can't convince you. That's kind of what the researchers say. That's like the happiness researchers. So if you're curious about that, like dig into it and look at what how they arrive at that, because that has to do with a lot of like kind of deep analysis. And I'm sure that you could find ones where they would be, that's probably like on average there's probably ones that think that it's more.
Maybe it's the 20%. Maybe it's me thinking of like somebody growing up on a pile of trash somewhere, and the rest of their life they have to sift through discarded electronics to like find their, make ends meet for their family.
Right.
And that seems so like deeply unfair, deeply more difficult for that person to achieve happiness in their life.
Well, the really interesting thing is that people are very resilient, and even people who are in circumstances that are quite dire manage to find happiness in it. To be pretty happy, more than you might think, across the world. But of course, all these factors come into play. But it sounds like this is something that's really interesting to you. So there is enormous amounts of research into how these things, how you attribute it and how they interplay, and also like how you might interpret that across the world in different circumstances and where people have like different value systems. This is something that is extremely, there's a lot of information there. So it's really fascinating. To me, I really focus on what the individual person can do right now with their conscious thoughts and actions, kind of like starting tomorrow. But there is a huge amount of study into those kinds of things. Yeah.
Excellent. I want to thank everybody for coming out.
Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, newly returned to the New York Times bestseller list.
Yes.
Let's hear it for Gretchen
here.
Rubin.
And thank you, Adam.